Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to create a watercolor sketch diorama. Now if this scene looks familiar to you, it's because it's actually based on one of my old sketches which I'm going to show to you later on. Now to call this a diorama is actually not that accurate because this is more of a pop-up book kind of art project. Because you can see from the top here, these are actually paper cutouts. Just that from the front, it actually looks quite nice. And there is this nice sense of 3D or physical form to this particular scene. So I can actually move around to see all the different elements and also the different perspective. So this is from the ground level and this is from a bit further up. This is the original sketch I made a few years ago. So this is the statue you saw earlier that's in front of this museum here, and this is the museum diorama. So as you can see, this version it's very simplified. The lines are extremely thick so that I can simplify this diorama, but for the sketch it's actually quite detailed because this was drawn with really thin lines. I will be using thick lines for this tutorial because it's easier for the camera to capture. That sketch was actually not drawn on location. That sketch was drawn with this reference photo, and this happens to be the only photo I have of the scene. Now if you want to make your diorama look detailed, I highly recommend you take as many photos as possible of the area, of the buildings, the different sides of the buildings, the elements like the people, all these structure that are standalone. So for example, with this particular photo, you can see the statue, it's in front of the museum, blocking some of the windows. So for this sketch here, the windows here, these were actually drawn from my imagination or what I think the windows may look based on what else I can see on this photo. Now if you are not able to take photos at the scene, you can actually use Google Street Maps to help you. So this is Google Maps. You can actually place your virtual self on the street, go into street view and just take a look at the buildings. And you can even go down the street, move around to see more of the scene. So this is one way you can move around to see different sides of the buildings, the area. Another way is to use Google Earth. Google Earth has this 3D element which allows you to see the physical form of the buildings. So for example, here I can rotate to see all these skyscrapers. Now if you can see the physical form of the buildings, it makes it easier for you to create the 3D or physical model. But unfortunately for this area here, these museums, these buildings here are actually government buildings, so there are no 3D models for them. So all I can see is the top of the building. I am not able to see the form of the building. So if you are actually on location, you should take as many photos as possible to help you get an idea of how the buildings look physically. For this tutorial, I'll be using the reference photo which you can download from the video description below, and the tools we'll need are scissors for cutting, a pen with waterproof ink so that we can paint watercolor over the lines, obviously watercolor supplies, paint, paper, brush and water. By the way, I took almost an hour to draw, paint, cut and arrange all this during one of the live streaming sessions that I have with my patron. So using 1 hour to create all this is actually pretty quick, mostly because this is a very simplified sketch. And I learned a lot from the mistakes I made during the live streaming session. So I'm going to tell you all the mistakes you should avoid in this tutorial. So let's draw the main building first. Now when we draw something to create the diorama, we need to draw all the sides so that we can fold them later on. So for the main building, this is the front. Now this is going to be a really simplified sketch. This is the front. This is the side wall, which I think should be half the width of the front. And we have the front again. This should be the same width as the front. So if you're actually on location, it's good to take lots of photos from different angles. Now this side wall here is not shown in the reference photo because it's blocked by the front, but it should mirror this. And we have another wall here. So what I'm doing here is basically just drawing the big shapes first before I draw the details. So now I can divide this into different smaller areas to draw the little elements. Let's draw the windows first. I'm going to make this sketch a bit more detailed compared to the earlier model I showed you. There are actually some stairs here. The stairs are going to be in 3D, as in they have physical form, but here I'm just going to draw them flat against the wall. So I've just drawn all the windows. Now if we take a look at the top of the buildings here, this part here is actually protruding out, but I'm going to draw that as a flat object. But there are these little things that are below that protruding part, which I'm going to draw just to add some detail to this sketch. For the statue, I'm going to have it at the same height of the building, although in real life it's probably shorter. And note that this stand that the statue is standing on, this has protruding parts as well, so we need to draw that and cut that out. Now this statue is going to be very difficult to create a 3D or physical form for it, so we are just going to draw this statue as a flat drawing. So the statue is about this tall. The stand should be about this tall. So I'm going to place my finger there to help me get the proportion right. Remember, you have to draw the front and the side of the stand. So this will be the front of the stand. This is the protruding part. And this is the bottom of the stand. And this is the side of the stand. Let me draw the head first. Now if you mess up your sketch, you can always draw another one. This, I think it looks alright. Next, I want to draw the red structure that's in front of the museum. It's actually a cylindrical structure. So in this case, I'm going to draw the cylindrical look for that. And I'm going to draw it quite short because in the original or the first version of the diorama, I actually drew this a bit too big. So now I'm drawing the building in the background, and for this building it's going to be challenging because in my photo I only can see a very small portion of this building. So this part here seems to be a semicircle. There seems to be a wall here, so maybe I can draw this line here. The windows, let me just divide this into the correct proportion first. The windows seem to be vertical. I can actually just paint the windows later on with watercolor. So let me just draw the front. For the bottom here, I don't actually know what I am drawing because I cannot see how the building looks from my photo because it's not showing this part of the building. So I'm actually just drawing what I think the building should look like. So in this case, maybe I should just add more detail just to see how this whole thing will turn out later on. I can actually see a bit of the red or orange roof, so I want to draw that. And lastly, I want to draw the clock tower. I'm not sure how tall I should draw that, but doesn't really matter. I can draw it taller than it really is, because later if it's too tall, I can just cut it shorter. This is how the top looks. This is just a very simplified version of this clock tower. There is a small building in front of the museum. I want to draw that as well. So this is the front with the door. And here is the side. It seems like there are some plants and some grills here. And lastly, let's have a person standing or walking. I'm using the height of this building to draw this person here. I'm going to keep my color palette really simple. So for the museum, I'm going to have it in light yellow or orange. This is Hansa yellow and New Gambosh. Now we can cut out all our elements. Now be sure to leave some space at the bottom so that we can fold and stick the bottom to the platform. So I'm going to cut this in a way where I can still see the line art. When we cut, we need to visualize how we are going to fold the cutout later. So for example, in this case, I'm going to cut this in such a way that I have two extensions here that I can fold to paste or stick this to the platform later on. So I need to cut like this. This part here, I can actually cut it away. So let's fold this. So this is how it looks after it's folded. So these two extensions here, I can stick some blue tack to the bottom to stick this whole thing onto the platform to make this more secure and stand properly. For this building in the background, we need to fold the roof, so we need to actually cut here so that we can fold the roof. So now with that cut, we can now bend here. Let's not bend this all the way until the roof cannot be seen. So let's push this up slightly. And here we can bend the bottom. Now you may want to use a ruler to help you bend straight edges like this. I'm just using my fingers because it's faster for me to bend it this way. I made a mistake with this. I accidentally cut away the extension at the bottom, so I had to redraw this again, this time with the extension at the bottom that I can fold. For this clock tower, I made a mistake as well, because if I were to bend this right in the middle, this dome would actually bend. So before you draw, try to visualize how you are going to bend the paper cutout. So this is supposed to be the proper way to draw it. I can bend here and the dome here will not be affected. So I'm going to use my ruler this time to bend it. Okay, this could be a problem because you see this dome is actually on this side. If I were to place it on the platform later on, I should actually have the dome on this side. This is also a mistake, so I actually redrew this. This is the third time, and this should be the right one. So let's use the ruler to bend this as well. But this clock tower, as you can see, it's quite small because I ran out of paper. This is the only piece of paper that I have left. Hopefully this will work. Hopefully this is going to be tall enough. This statue also has the same problem. It was drawn very close to where the paper should bend. So if I were to bend it like this and bend the bottom part, oops, accidentally bent there. So you can see if I place this on the platform, it's going to look like the statue is standing right at the corner there. So this does not look good. So in this case, I'm going to use the statue that I drew the first time. This one, this was drawn correctly. I have the statue right in the middle of this stand here, and this can be folded like this, and here at the bottom like this. So when I place this on the platform, it's going to look as if the statue is right in the center of the stand. Once again, I'm going to use the cover of this sketchbook as my platform. So let's stick some blue tack to the bottom of the cutouts. So this is the statue. It's going to be placed here in front of the museum, which is going to be here. So let's put some blue tack below here and here. The good thing about this diorama is you can change the positions of all these elements to fit your composition. And this will be placed right here. This is too long. Let me cut this. So this is placed right in front of the museum here. And this little building will be here. Let's place a small person here, overlapping the small building behind. Next, let's have this building in the background here, so that the building here overlaps this building here. And let's see more of the roof. And lastly, we can have the clock tower here. Okay, so this is actually at the right height. So this is the second diorama I made with more detail, and it does look better with more detail, especially for the building in the background. So this was the first version, and this is the second version with more details for the windows, and it looks better. This statue here, it looks out of place because this was drawn with really thick lines, whereas the sketches here, they were drawn with thinner lines. So I actually drew another version of this statue and I made it smaller. So let's put it here. So now this is not as gigantic as the other one, and the lines here, they have the same thickness as the other sketches. My light source is coming from the left, so you can see some natural shadows here, 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 and on the clock tower. So I can turn this around to change the composition, and it still looks good. The illusion will break at certain angles, like here, for example. You won't be able to see, obviously, the side of this building. So this scene looks best when you view it from this particular angle. This scene that I have here is actually not that difficult to create because most of these elements are actually just flat surfaces. They are just buildings. The more challenging things to create would be organic shapes like this statue here. You can make your diorama look so much better when you add details and also when you add more protruding parts, so as to make your scene look more dimensional, more 3D. Since all these elements are movable, you can easily just move them around to suit your composition. So even with this second version of the diorama, I still made a lot of mistakes while creating it. Some of the elements have to be drawn several times, but the thing is, the more mistakes you make, the more you will learn. One other thing you can do is to draw the blueprint so that you can remember where the buildings should stand. So I'm actually using the back of this cutout. So this is the museum. This is the statue, the big building in the background, and this is the clock tower. So now with this blueprint, I can reproduce the scene very easily. So how can you keep this or store this diorama away? I guess you can buy those wax paper, wax paper that's used to pack greasy food. So I will leave the blue tag on the watercolor paper and place it down like this, facing the wax paper, and maybe store or keep everything inside a sketchbook. Of course, everything will have to be unfolded. That's one way I can think of. If you can think of other ways to store this, let me know in the comment section below. And do let me know what you think about this art and craft project. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. I hope this video is interesting. See you guys again. Bye.